My name is Marcus Chen, and I was 18 years old when my sister took control of my life. It was the summer before my senior year of high school, a summer that was supposed to be filled with lazy days, video games, and hanging out with friends. Instead, it became the summer that transformed me in ways I never could have imagined. My sister, Vivian, was 5 years older than me, 23, and she had just graduated from college with a degree in fashion design. She was brilliant, ambitious, and absolutely terrifying when she wanted to be. She had always been the dominant one in our relationship, the one who bossed me around when we were kids, the one who knew exactly what she wanted and how to get it. I was the opposite. I was quiet, passive, and had always struggled to assert myself. I was small for my age, barely 5'6", with delicate features that made people constantly mistake me for being younger than I was. I had never been athletic or particularly masculine. I was just me, and I had always felt like I was somehow not enough. Vivian had come home for the summer to save money before moving to New York City to start her career. Our parents were thrilled to have her back. They had always adored her, their brilliant, beautiful daughter who was going to take the fashion world by storm. I was the afterthought, the quiet son who never caused any trouble but also never accomplished anything noteworthy. The trouble started about a week after Vivian arrived home. I had just finished my junior year, and I was feeling particularly low. My grades were mediocre, I had no plans for the future, and I felt like I was drifting through life without any direction. Vivian, as always, noticed. "Marcus, what's wrong with you?" she'd asked, cornering me in the kitchen. "You've been moping around all week." "Nothing's wrong," I'd said, shrugging. "I'm fine." "You're not fine," she'd said, studying me with those sharp eyes of hers. "You look like someone kicked your puppy." "Spill." I'd sighed and told her the truth. About how I felt like a failure, how I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, how I felt invisible and unimportant. I hadn't expected her to understand. I hadn't expected anything from her at all. But Vivian had looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, and then she'd said something that changed everything. "Marcus, what if I told you that I could help you?" she'd said. "What if I told you that I could show you who you really are?" "What are you talking about?" I'd asked, confused. She'd smiled then, a slow, knowing smile that made me feel like I was a mouse being cornered by a cat. "I'm talking about transformation. I'm talking about finding your true self. I'm talking about helping you become the person you were always meant to be." I hadn't understood what she meant then, but I would soon. The next day, Vivian had called me into her room. She had set up her makeup station, organized her brushes and palettes, and was wearing a black smock like she was preparing for surgery. "Sit down," she'd said, pointing to the chair in front of her vanity. "Why?" I'd asked, suddenly nervous. "Because I'm going to show you something," she'd said. "I'm going to show you who you really are." "I don't want to." I'd started to protest. "Marcus," she'd said, her voice firm. "I know you better than you know yourself. I've known you your whole life. And I know that there's a part of you that you've been hiding, a part of you that wants to be seen." I'd open my mouth to argue, but the words wouldn't come, because she was right. There was a part of me that I'd been hiding, a part of me that I'd been too afraid to acknowledge. For as long as I could remember, I had been fascinated by feminine things. The softness of silk, the beauty of lace, the way a dress could transform a person's entire appearance. I had never told anyone about this fascination. I had buried it deep, ashamed of who I was, afraid of what it meant. Vivian had seen through me. She always did. "You have nothing to be ashamed of," she'd said, as if reading my thoughts. "There's nothing wrong with being who you are. The only thing wrong is hiding it." "What do you want me to do?" I'd asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I want you to trust me," she'd said. "I want you to let me show you who you really are." And so, I had sat down in that chair. I had let her apply foundation to my face, concealer under my eyes, blush on my cheeks. I had let her paint my lips with a soft pink gloss, line my eyes with a delicate black, and brush mascara through my lashes. I had let her transform me. When she turned me to face the mirror, I hadn't recognized myself. The person looking back at me was beautiful. She was delicate and feminine and utterly lovely. She was everything I had never allowed myself to be. "Who is that?" I'd whispered. "That's you," Vivian had said softly. "That's who you've always been. You just never had the courage to see it." I'd stared at my reflection for a long time. And then, for the first time in my life, I'd smiled at the person I saw in the mirror. A real smile. A smile of recognition. "I don't understand," I'd said. "How did you know? How did you know this was what I needed?" "I know you, Marcus," she'd said. "I've always known. I was just waiting for you to be ready." After that day, Vivian took control of my life. She decided that I needed a complete transformation, not just in appearance, but in everything. The way I walked, the way I talked, the way I held myself. She was determined to make me into the person she knew I could be. "This isn't about changing who you are," she'd explained. "It's about letting who you really are come out. You've been hiding behind this mask of masculinity for so long that you've forgotten what's underneath." "I'm not." I'd started to protest. "Marcus," she'd interrupted. "When you looked at yourself in the mirror, did you see a boy? Or did you see something else?" I'd thought about it. I'd thought about the person I'd seen in the mirror, the beautiful girl with the soft eyes and the delicate features. And I'd realized that she felt more like me than I had ever felt before. "Something else," I'd admitted. "I saw something else." "And that's okay," she'd said. "There's nothing wrong with that. You're still you. You're just finally letting yourself be seen." The training began the next day. Vivian woke me up at 6 in the morning and marched me into the bathroom. "First lesson," she'd said. "Skincare. Your skin is the canvas for everything else. If you don't take care of it, nothing else will matter." She'd show me how to cleanse, tone, and moisturize. She'd explained the importance of sunscreen and exfoliation. She taught me about different skin types and how to choose the right products. I'd felt ridiculous at first, standing in front of the mirror with a face full of cream. But as the days went on, I began to notice changes. My skin became clearer, smoother, more radiant. I started to see the person Vivian had shown me in the mirror. "Next lesson," she'd said after a week of skincare. "Hair." She'd taken me to the salon and had my hair cut and styled. Not a dramatic change, just a subtle one. She'd had my hair shaped to frame my face, soften the edges, made it look more delicate, more feminine. "The way you style your hair can change your entire appearance," she'd explained. "It's one of the most powerful tools you have." I'd started to learn about makeup next. Vivian was a patient teacher, showing me how to apply foundation evenly, how to blend concealer, how to create the perfect smoky eye. She taught me about contouring and highlighting, about lip colors and blush shades. "This is a lot," I'd said one day, overwhelmed by all the information. "It's a lot because it's new," she'd said. "But once you learn it, it becomes second nature, just like anything else." The hardest part of the transformation was the wardrobe. Vivian had decided that my clothes were all wrong, that they didn't reflect who I really was. "We're going shopping," she'd announced one morning. "Shopping for what?" I'd asked, already suspicious. "Clothes," she'd said. "The clothes you've been wearing are hiding you. They're not you. They're just camouflage." I'd wanted to argue, but I knew it was true. I'd always worn baggy, shapeless clothes that didn't draw attention to me. I'd worn dark colors, plain styles, anything that would help me blend into the background. The shopping trip was overwhelming. Vivian had taken me to a department store and started pulling things off the racks with abandon. Dresses, skirts, blouses, sweaters. Everything in soft colors and delicate fabrics. "I'm not wearing a dress," I'd said, when she'd handed me the first one. "I can't wear a dress." "You can," she'd said. "And you will. Just try it on. If you hate it, you don't have to buy it." I'd taken the dress into the fitting room, my hands shaking. It was a simple dress, pale pink with thin straps and a flowing skirt. It looked like something a princess would wear. I'd slipped it on, and the moment I looked at myself in the mirror, I'd felt something shift inside me. The dress was beautiful. I was beautiful. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was seeing the real me. "Let me see," Vivian had called from outside the curtain. I'd stepped out, feeling self-conscious and exposed. But Vivian had gasped and clapped her hands together. "Oh, Marcus," she'd said. "You look beautiful. Absolutely beautiful." "I do?" I'd asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You do," she'd said. "And I'm going to prove it to you." We'd spent the rest of the day buying clothes. Dresses, skirts, blouses, shoes, accessories. By the time we got home, my closet was transformed. Gone were the baggy dark clothes. In their place was a rainbow of soft colors and delicate fabrics. "This is who you are," Vivian had said, surveying the new wardrobe. "This has always been who you are. You just needed permission to be her." "Her," I'd repeated. "Who's her?" Vivian had smiled. "What do you want your name to be?" "The name of the person you see in the mirror?" I'd thought about it. I'd thought about the person I was becoming, the person I wanted to be. And I'd known the answer immediately. "Marcella," I'd said. "My name is Marcella." Vivian had hugged me. "Welcome to the world, Marcella." Learning to be Marcella was a process. I had to learn how to walk in heels, how to sit with my legs crossed, how to use my hands in a more delicate way. I had to learn how to speak in a softer tone, how to tilt my head, how to gesture with grace. Vivian was a demanding teacher, but she was also patient and encouraging. She never made me feel foolish for my mistakes. She just corrected me gently and helped me try again. "You're doing so well," she'd say, when I managed to walk across the room without stumbling. "You're a natural." "I don't feel like a natural," I'd admit. "I feel like I'm pretending." "That's because you're still in transition," she'd say. "But soon, this will feel natural. Soon, you won't have to think about it. You'll just be." The first time I went out in public as Marcella was terrifying. Vivian had taken me to a small cafe in a different part of town, where no one would recognize me. I'd worn a soft blue dress and delicate heels, and I'd felt like everyone was staring at me. "Relax," Vivian had whispered. "No one knows who you are. Just be yourself." But I hadn't known how to be myself. I'd been so used to hiding that I didn't know how to be seen. A woman at the next table had smiled at me. "That's a beautiful dress," she'd said. "Where did you get it?" I'd frozen, unable to respond. But Vivian had stepped in smoothly. "It's from a boutique downtown. She's got a great eye, doesn't she?" The woman had nodded. "She sure does." After we'd left the cafe, I'd felt like I was floating. A woman had complimented me. She'd seen me as a woman, and it had felt wonderful. "See," Vivian had said, "you can do this. You are doing this." "Thank you," I'd said, "for everything. I never would have had the courage to do this on my own." "That's what sisters are for," she'd said. "We push each other to be better." The summer was a blur of transformation. By day, I was still Marcus, the quiet boy who tried to stay invisible. But at night, when Vivian and I were alone in the house, I became Marcella. I wore the pretty clothes, did my makeup, and practiced being the person I was meant to be. I started to look forward to those nights. I would come home from whatever mundane activities I'd been doing, and I would transform. I'd slip into a dress, apply my makeup, and become someone else entirely. Someone I liked. "Marcella," Vivian would say as I came down the stairs, "you're getting better every day." "Thank you," I'd say, twirling to show off my new dress. "I'm starting to feel like her." "That's because she's you," Vivian would say.
"She's always been you."
"You just had to find her." I started to find her more and more. I started to see her when I looked in the mirror. I started to hear her when I spoke. I started to feel her when I moved. One night, I looked at myself in the mirror, and I couldn't remember who I was before. The person I saw there, the beautiful girl in the pretty dress, was the real me. The person I'd been pretending to be was the stranger. "I don't want to go back," I'd said to Vivian. "I don't want to pretend anymore." "Then don't," she'd said. "Be who you are. All the time." "But people will see me," I'd said. "People at school. Mom and Dad. Everyone." "Let them see you," she'd said. "Let them see who you really are." I'd thought about it. I'd thought about the looks I would get, the whispers, the taunts. I'd thought about the humiliation and the rejection. And I'd realized that none of it mattered as much as being myself. "I can't," I'd said. "I'm not ready." "That's okay," she'd said. "You don't have to be ready. You just have to be willing to try. The discovery came on a Thursday afternoon. I had just gotten home from school, and I was feeling particularly low. The usual teasing had been worse than usual, and I'd felt like I was suffocating in my own skin. I'd gone to my room, closed the door, and broken down. I'd cried for what felt like hours, the tears coming from somewhere deep inside me. I'd cried for the person I was, the person I wanted to be, the person I was too afraid to become. Vivian had found me like that, curled up on my bed, sobbing. "Marcus," she'd said, rushing to my side. "What's wrong? What happened?" "It's everything," I'd sobbed. "I can't do this anymore. I can't pretend. I can't hide. I can't be this person I'm not." "Then don't," she'd said. "Be who you are." "I can't," I'd cried. "I'm scared. I'm so scared." "I know," she'd said. "I know you're scared. But being scared doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you have to do it anyway." I'd looked at her through my tears. How do you know?" "Because I've seen who you really are," she'd said. "And she's beautiful.
She's brave.
She's everything you've always been, but never had the courage to show." The next day, I'd made a decision. I was going to tell my parents. I was going to tell them who I really was. Telling my parents was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I'd sat them down in the living room, my hands shaking, my heart pounding. Vivian had sat beside me, holding my hand for support. "Mom, Dad," I'd started. "There's something I need to tell you. Something important." "Of course, Marcus," my mother had said. "You can tell us anything." "I'm not Marcus," I'd said. "Not really. The person I've been pretending to be, that's not who I am. I've been hiding. I've been pretending. But I can't do it anymore." "What are you talking about?" my father had asked, confused. "I'm transgender," I'd said, the words tumbling out. "I'm not a boy. I've never been a boy. I've always been a girl. My name is Marcella." The silence that followed was deafening. My mother had stared at me, her mouth open. My father's face had gone pale. "What are you saying?" my mother had whispered. "I'm saying that I'm your daughter," I'd said. "Not your son. I've always been your daughter. I just didn't know how to tell you." My mother had started to cry. My father had stood up and walked out of the room. I'd thought that was it, that I'd lost them forever. But then my mother had come to me and hugged me. "I don't understand," she'd said. "But I love you. I've always loved you. And I will always love you, no matter what." My father had come back a few minutes later. His eyes were red, but his voice was steady. "I don't understand this," he'd said. "But you're my child. And I love you. That's not going to change." I'd broken down, crying in my mother's arms. Vivian had hugged me too, and for the first time, I'd felt like I had a family. A real family. A family who loved me for who I really was. The transition was slow and difficult. There were doctor's appointments, therapy sessions, and endless conversations about what it meant to be transgender. There were moments of doubt and fear, moments when I wanted to give up and go back to being the person I'd pretended to be. But Vivian was always there. She was my rock, my support, my biggest cheerleader. She never let me give up, never let me forget who I really was. "You're doing so well," she'd say. "I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done this without you," I'd say. "You gave me the courage to be myself." "No," she'd say. "You had the courage all along. I just helped you find it." I started hormone therapy, and the changes began. My voice softened, my features became more delicate, and I started to look more and more like the person I'd always seen in the mirror. I changed my name legally. Marcella Chun. It was official. I was a woman. It's been 3 years since that summer. I'm 21 now, and I'm living my life as the person I was always meant to be. I'm a student at the same college Vivian attended, studying fashion design. I have friends who know me as Marcella, who accept me without reservation. I still see Vivian all the time. She's in New York now, working for a major fashion house, but she comes home often. She loves to see how far I've come. "You're a success," she told me last week. "You're living your truth. That's more than most people ever do." "Thank you," I'd said. For everything.
for seeing me.
For helping me. For never giving up on me. Never, she'd said. I would never give up on you. You're my sister. I'd smiled, and for the first time, it was a genuine smile. A smile of happiness and fulfillment. A smile of a person who was finally, completely, truly herself. I often think about that summer, the summer when Vivian took control of my life. I used to resent it, the way she'd pushed me, the way she'd forced me to see things I wasn't ready to see. But now I understand. She hadn't been controlling me. She'd been freeing me. My parents are supportive. They call me Marcella, use the right pronouns, and treat me like their daughter. It took them time to adjust, but they did. They love me, and they've made it clear that nothing will ever change that. I still struggle sometimes. Being transgender isn't easy. There are days when I still feel fear, doubt, and shame. But I have a support system now. I have friends who love me, a family who accepts me, and a sister who never gave up on me. Vivian's control had been the greatest gift anyone had ever given me. She'd seen the person I was hiding, and she'd had the courage to bring her out. If you're reading this and you're struggling with who you are, I want you to know that you're not alone. I've been where you are. I know the fear, the shame, the feeling of being trapped in a body that doesn't feel like yours. But I also know that there's a way out. There's a person you're meant to be, and you can find them. It takes courage, support, and a willingness to be vulnerable. But it's possible. My sister took control, and it changed everything. She saw the person I was hiding and helped me set her free. And now I'm living my truth. I'm happy. I'm whole. I'm me.
Epilogue.
Last week, I attended Vivian's wedding. She looked beautiful in her white dress, and I was honored to be her maid of honor. I wore a beautiful pale pink dress, my hair styled elegantly, my makeup perfect. You look stunning, Vivian said, as we prepared for the ceremony.
Thank you, I said.
I learned from the best. She hugged me. I'm so proud of you. You've come so far. I couldn't have done it without you, I said. You took control, and you saved my life. She smiled. That's what sisters are for. As I watched her walk down the aisle, I felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. I was exactly where I was meant to be. I was exactly who I was meant to be. And it was all because my sister had taken control. Life after Vivian's wedding continued with new challenges and new joys. I had graduated from college and was working as a junior designer at a boutique fashion house in the city. I had my own apartment, a small but cozy place filled with beautiful things that reflected the real me. I had started dating too, cautiously at first, then with more confidence. I had met a wonderful woman named Elena, a graphic designer who saw me for who I was and loved me anyway. You're amazing, she told me early in our relationship. You're so brave, so strong. I'm just me, I'd said. That's what makes you amazing, she'd said. You're authentic. You're true to yourself. I'd smiled, and I'd felt a warmth spread through me. I was loved. I was accepted. I was finally, completely, truly myself. I think about that summer often, the summer when Vivian took control. I think about how different my life would be if she hadn't. I might still be hiding, still pretending, still trapped in a body that didn't feel like mine. But she saw me.
She pushed me.
She freed me. She took control, and it changed everything. I'm grateful for that, grateful for her, grateful for the journey that led me here. I'm Marcella Chun, and I'm proud of who I am.